Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good break, and I hope you're a bit further down the spectrum of bewilderment. For those who just came in, we had a really nice set of talks about alternative modes of inviting wildness into kind of the materiality, the basic materiality of computing. We've talked about like alchemy, art science practices, fluid computing, but now we're gonna push that investigation a little bit further into kind of post-human soundscapes. And in this upcoming duo of talks, we pivot to visual and audio artists who construct speculative worlds. So we have Tharim Cornelisse, who invites us into the generative CGI dreamscapes, questioning reality through visual art, while the next duo, Cortical, share how they create AI-infused, hyper-detailed AV performances, envisioning futures devoid of humans. Both tackle the idea of world building, like we alluded earlier, one from a playful introspective angle and the other from an extreme sci-fi club culture angle. So there's a lot of kind of new elements that are going to debut into our conversation. So first, let me introduce Tharim, who's currently on stage. Tharim Cornelisse is a digital artist based here in Amsterdam with a focus on generative design, CGI, and real-time visuals. His work tries to translate abstract things into comprehensible feelings. So his works show and tell. He will show and tell about his research around the theme, what parameters in the world, reality around us, can change to give the sense that there is more than there is. Big round of applause for Tharim. Take the stage.
Yeah, thank you. It's very true, I'm Tharim. My name is Tharim Cornelisse. I'm 29 years old, 1 meter 98, born here indeed. And I exist in all these different angles, and it's most of the times on a computer. I have sort of three parts. I'm a freelance, my autonomous art practice. And I'm art director of Draaimolen Festival in Tilburg. And next to that, I'm also a boy. And so all of this happened, and then there's me being born, there's Amsterdam North, and there's me going to high school, and then we skip through it, and then all of a sudden we're here now. And then if you zoom out a little bit, there's maybe loads of graphic design, and there's generative design, and there's schools, and there's whatnot. And then there's the sentence, I'm a digital artist and art director with a focus on procedural and generative design and real-time visuals. And I take a big, deep breath. You go, oh, that's the sentence. And then one of you asks me, what exactly is that? And I'll tell you. Trust me, I'll tell you. But how did we get here before this this moment now and here? I studied illustration at the WDKA. After that, I got into a DIY rave scene. I studied at the Sandberg Design Masters, and then we're here. And I used to do loads of drawing when I was at the WDKA, and at some point I followed the class of digital craft taught by John Stem. And John's class was really focused on the fact that digital techniques or digital workflows could be a craft rather than just a quick tool that you maybe use to play Age of Empires 2 on your parents' computer. And this really got to me, and I really got into this basically everything computers. Then after my school, as you do, you moved to Berlin, and then COVID hit, and I had loads of free time, and I really got into procedural design, Houdini and touch design at the time. And at some point, again, as you do, you want to dance. But it was COVID, the end of COVID, so we started a live stream, so all my friends in their living rooms could dance. And in this live stream started to go into more of a rave, where I, for the first time, really engaged with people that are maybe were more like-minded than me, had the same expectations from this dance floor, and was also really open space for just to talk about maybe gender or sexuality that I had never really witnessed before. And after that, I went to Sandberg, to the Design Masters, and here some things really fell into place because this generative and procedural design workflow I had time to really dive into. And also on thematics, because I moved back because my mom got quite ill as well at the time. And while she was ill, I found some joy in maybe really zooming in or really zooming out into what I was doing, to forget about, well, not really forget about, but just maybe things don't seem so bad when you really zoom in or really zoom out. And then, what is a procedural design technique? I make a drawing, and I tell the computer, look well at this drawing, and I make a framework for the computer to look at it, and then the computer makes another drawing based on this drawing, and I pick one of these drawings, I say that's a nice drawing, make more drawings based on that. Then I pick maybe one more, and I say make even more drawings based on that. So maybe within a relatively short time, I make a very large quantity of images from which I can sort of pick and choose, and then I can use this to make stuff basically in a nutshell. And then maybe the outing is a album artwork or is a AV show or whatever. And over the past few years, my experimentation really became this big wheel of software that I sort of give a big spin to, and then these things mix and they influence each other, and this back and forth start to feel more like a collaboration with my computer rather than really using the computer as a tool. Maybe peak digital craft in my mind. And then over the years, maybe I found some sweet spots, and if you really zoom in, there's a picture of me. That's nice. And after a few years, maybe 2 years ago, I created this picture, and this picture to me really sort of maybe encapsulated what I was getting really into. 2 megaliths and a scaffolding around it. I really like megaliths. They give me a feeling of I don't understand what is happening. There's no connection. It's the one vertical in this horizontal landscape. And next to the fact maybe that we know very little about them, they also give me a feeling of there must be something more at stake here than I understand really, because I walk into this field and there's only this rock. What is this? What is happening? And then I thought of the idea of the scaffolded megalith. Maybe you're building this scaffolding around this megalith, and you observe what is happening, and what are the parameters here that make me feel this feeling of I don't understand what's going on, but I feel like there's more happening than there actually is. So creating a situation where this feeling arises of also slight absurdity maybe, but of what I just said. Creating a situation where this feeling arises and where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So all these parameters, there's grass, you're in this open field, there's this rock that maybe if it was laying this way it would be normal, but just the fact that it's standing up like this gives me the feeling that there's, what happened here, or how did this happen? And throughout my life there's multiple things that make me feel this way. For example, me praying at my grandparents' place, where I didn't understand what's happening, but I was holding hands with my grandparents. There's maybe a crucifix on the table, and I feel like I close my eyes, and then I think, oh, I don't think I've ever held hands with anyone closing my eyes. So you almost start to feel like there's something more than just us in this living room. And it's the same experience that I have on a dance floor, in a club experience, where the lights are strobing, there's smoke, the music is well timed, is perfectly spat out of the sound system that would never turn on just for you. And then at some point you think things like, am I tasting the color purple, or what is happening? I feel so many stimuli coming into me that you think there's something more happening between me, the DJ, and all of the crowd. There's sort of another thing. And I feel this way with many things, and I'm really intrigued by it and try to translate it into my work. Maybe another example that I'm really a big fan of is this, the battle of BR5RB in EVE Online. This was an online video game where you could buy a real digital spacecraft for real money. And at this battle there was maybe, I believe, $40,000 was sort of shot away. And when I look at this picture, it's visually, I think, amazing, but there's also so many people all sort of putting their, really thinking this is important and really diving into this and creating something altogether that's not there. Maybe a bit abstract, but I hope you understand. And same with maybe little marks or things I found on the street. All of a sudden there's a whole narrative, and it's not just chalk and a tile, but there's like a hidden signal or something, or there's all of a sudden this whole narrative pops up just from the street. Same as at my job as an art director. There's the people are dancing and there's smoke, and all of a sudden there's a DJ plays a track and the light is right, and it feels like someone is directing everything. All the rotators, like a big mixer, all the parameters are set the right way, and all of a sudden all of us believe in this one thing that is sort of directed by us or by someone. Love megaliths. So how I think the afterthought of this is, how can I build these magnifying glasses that enhance this feeling? Where are the parameters, and how do I sort of move them? And this was within my own work, but also within my work as an art director. Just wanted maybe to share some works of mine where I think that's the same feeling is felt. This is my graduation work, Everything on My Retina, and it's in this work I try to make sort of a new horizon where this feeling is dissected and is zoomed in and zoomed out and zoomed in and zoomed out. And this was also a big part of how I worked at Sandberg. One of my teachers is here, very sweet Tina. And I wanted to share maybe a small piece just to get an idea of also how something like that would look. Nope. Oh no. Yeah, cheers. So this
Er niet meer aan. Je leert jezelf met vuur spelen in die tijd. Je kleine herinneringen verstenen. Je metro vertrekt en je bedenkt waar je zo uit gaat stappen. En we sluiten het hand in hand af. Jouw rechterhand in mijn linkerhand. Want het meest genadige in mijn wereld, denk ik, is het onvermogen om alle inhoud ervan te bevatten. Ik leef op een klein, kalm eilandje van onwetendheid, te midden van zwarte zeeën van oneindigheid.
This last quote is a piece of text from The Call of Cthulhu, but I think it translates this feeling well from what I think about it. Sometimes it's very also it can be very comforting not knowing this, not knowing everything, and having this really overwhelming feeling, and having this thing that you can't really explain. Someone I really found a partner in is Woody92, Woody Schravenmade, and his label Omenwap that I'm part of. And Woody is also really into the same feeling, but then maybe from a different angle, where he's really into the fact of using maybe symbolics that don't even have to mean something particularly, but they evoke this feeling of there must be a whole narrative, there must be a whole universe behind this. These are just two artworks I made for him, but last year I made a video clip for one of the tracks from this label, and I think I kind of want to show something of that as well, but I just pressed it away. Yeah, because his music gives me the feeling that that this sound has always been there, and that we just have a sort of a glimpse into what it looks like now, and just by using these space and these images and this sort of symbolism, if you will, we get this feeling. Throughout the video, you follow this sculpture, this thing, that I think also is really, again, scaffolding in the megalith. You take certain elements from that parameters that give you the feeling of what is happening, or I don't understand this, and you really enlarge on them and sort of put them underneath a loop and enhance them in a way. And lastly, before my timer runs out, the last thing is a live show that I'm working on right now that premiered 2 weeks ago, or there was a test case 2 weeks ago in Berlin. It's a live show with Abdo, Dutch artist, where I made a sort of larger procedural network that took all her pictures and translated them into this new world, this sort of abstract world that, where maybe this framework is the scaffolding, and the megalith itself is this new world that we're creating together, me and Tessa. So everything is reacting live to the sound that's being inputted. And there's just a framework where she can choose from how things should react and how things should behave, but giving the computer quite some agency over this, over what is happening. And maybe to sum everything up, I think in combination with the thematic of fiber, in my work I look a lot for this wildness in this digital world. How much agency can I give the computer, and when should I make a choice, and when should the computer make a choice to, together with the computer, dial in on all these parameters that that give the audience, or gives the viewer this feeling. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Tharim. This was
Cheers.
wonderful. I think it's very evident, like, how much the theme of like wildness has manifested itself in the narrative and the work that you presented. Like, I really recall in the beginning when you said, okay, I have a bunch of tools and it's just a roulette, and it's a collaboration. It's not really using it as a tool. And it's whether how you kind of navigate the different disciplines, or how you investigate a feeling of, like, how can I replicate it. I just have a question about then the process itself.
Yeah.
And for maybe a lot of people in the audience who are maybe practitioners, if there is one advice about inviting wildness into your practice that you give them, because I feel like you've had an extensive, thorough, wild investigation that stems a lot of, like, form. What would you give as an advice of, like, I want to invite wildness?
I think for me there's a lot of play. There's really such a stupid answer, really, but it's just playing around heaps and heaps and heaps. I really enjoy this. The softwares that I'm using, there's a really big community of people that take it very seriously and that are really into maybe the technical side of this. But for me, there's a large sense of play when maybe I understand 5% of it, but I can. There's so much fun to be had with just this 5% already. So. Yeah, I think that's the.
But my hearing is also that I don't have to understand it fully to start.
Yes, 100%.
Like tinkering with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then also this back and forth for me is this is maybe also a big wilding where just see what comes back, just like throwing a ball against the wall all the time and then see how it lands.
And I think it also manifests a lot in the procedural design as a practice.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, I don't know what comes out, but I'll also nudge it in certain places to behave in a way that works for me, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Maybe it's a time to get a question from the audience now. It could be about the practice, about the story. Yeah, there's a question there in the back. Yeah. Yeah.
Versus where you think as an artist it's better that you step in.
Yeah.
Where do you delineate? Where is that line for you?
Okay. Very good question.
Just to paraphrase for the people who couldn't hear, so this is a question about the agency that we're talking about of giving to the computer, and the threshold of basically how do you know where your agency stops and where the computer's agency steps in.
Yeah, really good question. And I think it's also it's a bit of a pendulum for me, where maybe when I first started doing this, I really got into the idea that, everything is a formula, really. There's raindrops fall in a certain way because they rain dew sort of went up and then fell down. But there's all, you can calculate everything, and then I got really into the idea of, okay, there should be a sort of like a golden code or like a golden way of doing it, that where the computer has all agency and does everything in a good way. But more and more I find that it's really not that interesting then, and that there's that more and more also now with sort of AI being such a big part of all of this, that there's a very interesting, I think now I keep coming back to the fact that I need to make more decisions, but in combination with this computer. So every 10 decisions that the computer I make one, and that one is really bold and it's really big. So I think it's something that moves, and I'm not really sure yet where it is, but I enjoy sort of diving into it though.
It's $1,000 question, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with AI, I think I spend more time trying to get the AI to behave like I want, rather than just prompting and accepting what it gives out.
And then also language is such a annoying way to describe things, or it's so limited really.
It's non-deterministic by nature.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
There's a lot of ambiguity baked in, and I think you're always trying to go from language, which is like ambiguous by nature, into something code, which is really not.
Yeah, exactly.
So another question. I think we have time for a very, maybe one-word answer question. All right, maybe I'll ask you something.
Sure.
Because I think I throughout the whole session, I feel like we speak about wildness with a certain type of romance of like, oh, let's rewild our practices. But maybe if there's like a moment where you went through frustration with kind of this kind of methodology of like, I'll just probe it and see what comes out.
You mean frustration with this procedural generative design?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and now I had it lately. I think my main medium now is taking pictures of their photos. Yeah. Just heaps of photos, because it's so, there's, and also what you see online, there's this, often things really look the same because we all use the same tools, and then I get a bit bored of it, I'm a bit annoyed with it, and then I maybe start doing something else. But there's also, my answers are really double-sided all the time, because it's also still, all of this is such a big playground as well. There's so many small
the frustration is part of it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like I cannot do anything with this tool anymore. Time for a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's roll it again.
Yeah. I think which also some people really dislike, but to me there's also lots of fun in that for sure.
Okay, no, I identify a lot with that. So thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you.
And thank you a lot for your generosity in general. So big round of applause for Tharim. Really wonderful to have you here. And I think I also feel quite lucky because we're going to get to kind of continue this discussion a little bit with Cortical. And let me kind of talk about the next talk a little bit more, contextualize it as they set up on stage. So basically it is a duo with Sevi Iko and Daniel Benza, who are multidisciplinary artists based in Barcelona, specialized in music production, CGI, VFX. Within the process of making their first EP, they drew influences from artists like Mom Dance, Lee Gamble, or Arca. They are world builders first and foremost, either with their audiovisual creations or in the booth. Their love for the weirdest mutations of the last 30 years of club music. Their DJ sets are electric, cathartic, and overwhelming to the senses. They are also participants of the collective rally 5G, a hyper-accelerationalist group that looks to redefine the clubbing experience by bringing carefully crafted, extreme-sounding, and delirious-inducing experiences to the dance floor. So big round of applause.
Hello. Hello, nice to meet you all. Welcome. Thank you for being here. As our friend here said, we are a duo of electronic music. We both are visual artists as well by training. That's our day job, so to speak. And as you will see, we have a lot of things in common with Tharim. The way that he explains, the way that he approaches his work, and the way that he channels confusing emotions into it, how he explores his own emotions, and how it's a dialogue with the machine in which you find out and discover on all kinds of things. To give you a little bit of context of who we are, we've been doing visual art for a really long time now. I think I've been into it for like 16 years maybe. Danny, maybe
7 years ago, more or less. So
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we always have been drawn into music. We actually met each other at a club, obviously. He was a minor and he was playing illegally. And I assaulted him because I liked his set a lot. And since there, we've always been in touch. And so we've been brewing this thing for a long time, but this is a really, really young project that just started maybe a year and a half ago. But we're both naturally, I think it's working very naturally the way. I've had a lot of partners, a lot of projects, a million ways to approach this. And this project has taken a life of itself, and it has become kind of like a beast with a will, you know? So it's kind of like it's asking us to do certain things, and it dictates what we do about it. So I'm gonna give you a general round of, oh, there is a click here. Okay.
You see.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not very technical. This is high tech for me. So, in terms of like artistic practice and identity, we are emotionally driven artists, right? So this means that we don't try to rationalize our practice. We try to process emotional stuff with it, right? Like we have all grown having really big influences. It's like what makes me feel alive and what motivates us to understand, to grow, and to create. And it comes from a necessity to revisit emotions that we felt for the first time. A lot of times, things you were talking, like feeling this strange overwhelm, this confusion, this mixture of two emotions that feel contradictory. And it's like, when you feel them for the first time, it's like magic, right? Like I remember seeing Akira when I was 5 alone in my house, and my brain exploded, and I went to bed and I had the craziest nightmares. And after that, I've always been just trying to recreate that myself somehow. But yeah, to summarize that, we try to take the art practice as an exploration, right? We believe that art, or at least the way we see it, is a process of finding out things, right? And through that exploration, we find aesthetic elements that are really interesting, that are emotionally inducing, and also we have, a lot of resonant elements that we just bring together to you when we find them. It's kind of like we go on an expedition, we find a cool rock, and then we present it to you. So we, as he said before, we are infused basically by a lot of UK club music, and like the scene of drum and bass, UK bass, experimental stuff. But we don't define ourselves with a genre. We don't try to make music for specific drum, for specific genres or specific dance floors. We are more into looking for like an experience, so to speak. So we are trying to create music that is somehow cathartic in a way, and that kind of helps us transcend somehow a little bit. I feel like music nowadays, especially club music, it has a very utilitarian energy to it, and I think originally it was not so much like that. I think when it started in the clubs, a lot of it was, it had like an emotional meaning behind it, and a lot of times it was political, it was the situation. For us, or at least for me, there's a part of processing a mixture of contradicting feelings that I have personally. I have a constant sensation of like hostility from the world, and a constant sort of paranoia mixed with the feeling of I want to overcome that paranoia and I want to feel powerful. So I think subconsciously I just pour all of that into the music and the visual, and I try to give you that experience, right? Like something that is overwhelming, super intense, but at the same time it feels energizing, powerful, and you know, it doesn't leave you indifferent.
Yeah, other important thing that when I started Cortical, we don't start making songs. So we started with the idea to make a live set. So feelings were always on the first for us, because we are always talking that, okay, now I have this song, but on the stage, what have sense to hear them? We always create on this kind of line, like to have a narrative for the audience that can feel that. I don't know how to say that, but this is like a emotional narrative, not for nothing in concrete. So
yeah, we try to not over-intellectualize anything that we do, because I feel at least over-intellectualizing is a trap. I feel like intuition has been there for like 100,000 years old. Like our brain has been the same. We have been living in the world and experiencing the world without particular language. And now we try to do the opposite, right? We try to put everything through the rationale and the language, and that just basically creates sterile things, which I'm not really that much into, right? So we cannot explain exactly what's the meaning behind everything that we do. It's just a trip that we explore for no apparent reason, and then we bring it to you, and we hope like you can tell us what you feel. That's like the actual important part. Like we love how people come to the shows and they're super happy and they're like, oh yeah, it was super fun, this part. I'm like, I thought it was scary, but like it's really cool, the interaction and the dialogue that this generates, and how these emotional elements reflect into the people. Yeah, we have a sort of underlying general tone that it keeps popping up, and it's nothing too conscious. It's something that we just happen to stumble upon, and we kind of like come back again and again. And it's a mixture of themes that have it's kind of like everything around the human, but not the human itself, right? We're very interested in technology as it is, devoid of the context of the humans. We are interested in the symbology that humans have, but kind of like almost even thought of it from outside. Like if you were the alien and you saw the human, I don't know, like symbology, art, and stuff like that, how would you experience that? How would you perceive that? Like if you were a fish man from Saturn and you saw like I don't know, a movie, how would you feel it or experience it? So we try to bring the opposite. We try to make you feel, okay, I could maybe relate to this thing. There is something my brain can catch, but I quite not know how to feel about this. This is making me feel good and uncomfortable at the same time. I'm not sure we have yet been able to achieve that, but it's our goal long term. In terms of building, as I said, we build through emotion. We don't do much theory. We don't research. The research is like our experience in life. We just read a lot. We see a lot of stuff. We buy comic books. We research all kinds of artists, musicians, and we just kind of like absorb this somatically, and then it just sits in our subconscious. And then it doesn't really mean that we have to put all of that into our work, but that's there, right? Like for example, Danny was only listening to trance for like the last 3 months, but there's not a single trance song in our record because Cortical has a life of its own. Like it won't let me put a trance song because it will look silly for some reason. So I have to listen to the beast and do what it tells me. So there is always an intention, an energy, but there is not a clear end point. The end point happens when there is the dialogue with the audience. Okay, in terms of process and creation, there is a double-edged sword, okay? We are both relatively technical, even though I cannot use this. We both are visual artists. We work with Cinema 4D, Octane, Unreal, After Effects. He used to do Houdini, but not anymore.
Difficult beasts.
Yeah. We use Resolume, we use Ableton, and we have a good relationship with all of them. We've gotten to a point where we can really quickly craft stuff that we are really comfortable with. So when we have a vibe or an idea, we just can like manifest it really quick. But also we love the idea of creating systems that generate things for us. So we become a mixture between a curator and a programmer, right? Like you sit there, you come up with a weird idea. Okay, I want this strange processing chain that turns bird sounds into really, really loud car crashes. How the fuck do I do that? So then we make a chain, and then we press play, that thing starts talking, and we sit there and we just record like 1 hour, 2 hours, and then we just curate all the good bits in the middle, chop them up, and save them in a sample library. And that way we can start building a vocabulary that in the moment of creation, it helps us actually never lose the flow state, which I think with digital tools is the most problematic thing, right? Like if you go too much into if you have time to go too into detail, you will get into the flow state. But if you are always like having to take decisions, it's very difficult. So we try to combine both a very surgical approach to an idea and a very stochastic sort of procedural approach to things. Also, we're starting to use AI. We don't use it a lot yet, but it's obviously the thing in the future. So yeah. Yeah, I explained this already. Okay, we always start with like 3 different things. One is a limitation, which is one of the most important things in creativity. Another one could be an emotion, and another one could be a question. A limitation could be, okay, I can only use my voice to make this thing, or I can only make whatever I do with just one simple plugin or whatever, you know? Or I have to do whatever I can in under 10 minutes, right? Limitations are the best things for the creativity and the human mind. An emotion could be something, sorry, I'm going over the time, but just a little bit. An emotion could be something like, okay, I remember feeling really, really confused about this thing. How can I make an art piece that actually puts me back into that emotion? And a question usually is a combination of several things. Like, okay, how can we mix Jersey Club with The Thing and with Pingu? Okay,
Yeah.
like what would happen?
We are always joking and sharing memes, and this is the starting point for a lot of ideas. And emotion tools is a thing that you find when you are creating something. But definitely, to put limitation to create something is the perfect way to kind of start looping around how to do something, because you have infinite possibilities. If you have less possibilities, you can get something early, I think. So
Creativity is infinite between 2 points. So, so this is a small example. This is an image of obscure video game from the 80s called Dark Seed, made by H.R. Geiger. And then I kind of like love this idea of interfaces and weird shit and humanoid weird alien shit. So we kind of like absorbed that and then reinterpreted it without much pretension or like, you know, complex background, like narrative. I just liked it, and that's it. So I remade it here in a different way, and you know, it's kind of like gives me an interesting vibe that I want to explore. We also have a lot of influences that are not in our vocabulary. Like for example, you know, we love these animes from Made in Abyss and Kaiba and some other things, stuff that is super traditional illustration. And it might not be something that is reflected at all in our practice, but it always has an emotional back end that is like, you know, manipulating things. So I think it's interesting to understand that every artist has a facade of things they show to you, but then they also have usually a very open and ample background of influences that they're not telling you, and that's what's like giving everything its sauce. And yeah, to summarize everything in terms of what means for us the term of wildness, I think it's a very important thing, because I think it's a connection with the emotional truth, right? Like who you are, like when you remove all the barriers of language, like the essence of the person, the natural drive, like your emotional compass that is driving you to act the way that you are. I think I'm a big advocate to eliminating all the actual scaffolding, the language scaffolding that we create around ourselves, and then exploring from that part of like complete intuition, right? And then you can always rationalize after, you can understand yourself after, but it's interesting to remove yourself out of the process and just, you know, become one with the thing, extract what you want to extract, and then you can analyze it and, you know, see how it interacts with the world. And that will reveal more of you than if you sit around trying to understand yourself like on a paper. So, and yeah, this is just a couple of things, some visual stuff from our show. This is a little alien that we did, and you will see in the show later tomorrow. Some images of the live show, and I think apparently this is a video. Yeah, should work. Yeah, this is a small visual from our show, and a bit of the song. Oops. Quality is probably not.
it doesn't show on the screen.
It's not showing? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like a grandpa. Also, I don't understand this language, so I don't know how to make it like good quality. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is the start of the show. Okay, and that's it because we're so much over time. Sorry.
Savi and Daniel, thank you so much. I mean, there's so many quotable things in your presentation. I always remember the wildness is an emotional truth. I remember intellectualization is a trap. And I really think there is a nice connection with Tharim's work of like display, exploration, of rejecting kind of the narrative closure of like computing and AI and so on, and really kind of bringing something emergent to the table. Again, I have so many questions, but I will maybe defer to the audience for now. And I would also like to say, there's a sense of loss because this was so short and so rich, but then there's a sense of opportunity because tomorrow they're going to be playing one of their sets at the same, very, very same place here. So if you never leave this place, you'll you can run into it tomorrow. Exactly. So yeah, any pressing questions from the audience, or non-pressing? I'm sorry to introduce this urgency. Yeah, the red shirt.
I thought it was very interesting what you said about this rational mind versus the intuitive mind, right? And focus on the intuitive side. And there's kind of a irony in rationally proposing this, but when it comes to AI, the large language models are so good at the rational side, really getting better and better. Do you think there's opportunity to kind of nudge people toward getting more into this intuitive mindset that we all have?
Okay.
Kind of eaten out of us in school?
All right, so just to rephrase for the people listening to the recording, this is a question about the onset of AI and large language models, and basically the tension that you've described before between the intuitive mind and the rational mind. These models are really good at the rational. How do we nudge people to be more intuitive when working with these models?
I have a technique which is confusing the AI. When you confuse it, the fuck out of it, it starts actually doing cool stuff. But if you try to be a good boy and feed it like, like I don't know, something that is too obvious, it will just make you like a Pixar movie. So it's completely stupid, in my opinion. So what I tend to do is, like for example, I work without any prompts. I just feed it a lot of random images, and then because it doesn't know what to do, it starts making really aberrant things. And then between those aberrant things, I find little details that I'm like, oh, well, this is really funny. And then I explore those things, and I might take some of those ideas kind of like as prompts myself. So I see maybe a weird face in a corner that I think is very, very hilarious. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something like that in 3D and then explore it from there. And then maybe I feed that back into the AI and see what happens, right? So I treat it a little bit as like my weird cousin that I keep in a closet, and I don't give him like enough information. I just like chuck some potatoes from time to time, and then like I get it back. And I think that is the best way to use AI, because the second that you're a slave to the AI and that you do the taxes and it does the creativity, then you're dead. Like, creatively.
What is the point?
Like, So.
No, I really like what you mentioned before. I think one of your slides has had the words sonic vocabulary, and I always think of like, okay, for in the context of world building and introducing wildness, what is my vocabulary? Which tools am I? Is my whole vocabulary one AI tool and what comes out of it? Then it's not a wild vocabulary and not sufficient for alternative worlds. You're just reproducing the same closed loop world that big tech is trying to reproduce, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is a really big, important thing to me, for us, is eliminating as much friction of the creative process as you can. So we try to separate it in blocks. One block usually is kind of like a part of sort of research, aesthetic research, kind of like world building, but it's very kind of like soft ideas, you know, like, okay, I wanna, I don't know, a world where vegetables are evil and you know, they're technological as well. So we might set up a basic concept like that, and then we play with that into small small seeds that then we extrapolate to bigger parts. For example, we might create one chain of processing out of 10 or 20 that we do that all of a sudden starts spouting amazing shit. And then like all of a sudden we have 100 sounds that are each one of them is like good enough for one song. So we're like, okay, this is fucking amazing. But if we had to actually mentally have to go through that process to get that, it's impossible. You cannot predict. That's why you use a computer. If you want to be so deterministic, play a guitar. You know, like you need to let the computer speak.
Okay, so I wish we can have a longer conversation about this. Again, I have so many questions, sub-questions now specifically about this. But then we have a small break now, so I think this is more of a chance for a continued conversation, distributed conversation. So I'd like to thank you again for your generosity, for kind of walking us through this.
Thank you.